The Justice Department has less than a week to submit its proposed redactions to the Mar-a-Lago search affidavit.
That's right. A judge hinted Thursday he could unseal at least parts of the document. Media outlets, including CBS News, are pushing for the affidavit to be made public so you all can see it. The judge agreed with the media about the, quote, substantial national and international interest in this investigation, but the Justice Department is arguing unsealing the document could compromise the ongoing investigation.
So joining us now is CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Sganga with more. She was in the Florida courtroom during yesterday's hearing. Nicole, great to see you. So do we have a clear idea of which sections of this affidavit specifically the Justice Department might be most concerned about going public with?
Tanya, Errol, good to be with you. Was in the courtroom behind me just yesterday, and it's still unclear just how long this affidavit is. So piecing through the different parts of it, remains to be seen. What we do know is that, lawyers for the government yesterday increasingly concerned about disclosing any names related to this ongoing criminal investigation. So that includes law enforcement agents, members of that FBI search team. That also includes any federal prosecutors connected to this case, or importantly, any witnesses that are currently cooperating with the federal government as part of this ongoing probe. But beyond that, lawyers for the federal government, Jay Bratt, one of the top national security officials from the Department of Justice, making the argument yesterday that in addition to having names redacted from this key document, he would also like descriptions of any individuals connected with this case redacted as well. So if an individual, for example, federal law enforcement agent, trained at Quantico or has a certain specialty, those are details that prosecutors are very concerned, might perhaps be used by members of the public, amateur sleuthing to uncover some of the identities of those connected to the investigation of the former president. Now, the judge did say yesterday he would be inclined to keep those parts of the affidavit under seal. We also know that one of the concerns is that this could chill future cooperation with this investigation if other witnesses are perhaps more reticent to move forward and to work with the federal government on this. In addition to that, some of the newly unsealed documents from yesterday, including the application for the Mar-a-Lago search warrant revealing the threat of possible obstruction. One of the charges yesterday among the 3 possible violations of federal law that we learned about was obstruction of a federal investigation. And so, concerns still that if more details about this investigation come to the surface, we could see further evidence destruction.
And in the background of all of this, we understand, Trump's team has hinted that they may release some of the security footage from Mar-a-Lago that itself would present security risks. The Department of Justice has also said, look, because of these risks, there may be significant redactions in the document that ultimately they put forward to be made public. What happens if the judge sees effectively page after redactions when the DOJ gets back to them? What then?
Errol, that is such an important point, and one of the things that Judge Reinhart made sure to underscore in the courtroom yesterday is that regardless of whatever we may or may not see from this affidavit makes sense, that's not really up to him. So he called it meaningless gibberish. He said if at the end of the day what comes out of this affidavit is meaningless gibberish, that's somebody else's problem. So we could see an affidavit that looks a little like Swiss cheese. We're looking at it, we're trying to parse some of the details. That being said, the federal judge said he was not ready to say, keep this document completely under seal. But we could be talking about a document that perhaps is a little challenging to decipher. In terms of what happens next, you mentioned it, the federal government has 1 week to come back to the court with their version of this brief, of this key document. At that point, the judge will decide whether or not he feels that that redacted affidavit is adequate. Now, if he decides, he doesn't like it, Judge Reinhart will actually come up with his own version of this. That version will remain under seal, giving the government an opportunity to appeal. So at the end of the day, we could see, part of this document come out in 1 week's time, or we could be having this conversation sometime in September.
All right, Nicole Sganga, thank you very much.